Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to Proper Madness. My name is Sabby, and I give a unique perspective on mental health by providing tools, guidance, and knowledge on how we can better understand ourselves, as well as our past and present experiences, and in doing so, we can help heal our mental health. I get to speak with a variety of individuals from around the world as they share their stories from their journey through their mental wellness so that it helps others stand strong and use their voice. Welcome back, everyone, to Proper Madness. Today I have Cassandra with me. She is a hormone menstrual cycle specialist, and everything she talks about is so amazing, so informative. So I'm excited to have her on here today.
Thank you so much, Sabby. I'm so honored and excited to be here.
It's gonna be amazing to have you on, I think, because everything that you talk about is just so informative. Like, I was scrolling through some of your stuff last week in my fever dreams, and one particular post really jumped out at me. I'd say the one, I mean, you talk about this often, but there was one that you posted, I think recently, within the last week, of how we're constantly in a stressed state sometimes, and we're not aware of it, and the way that we tailor maybe our fitness or our eating habits especially can highly impact your hormonal health, which is massive. So yeah,
I feel like people don't really consider that, when they think about stress. They think about like work stress, like traffic, something with your kids, and they don't realize that how you exercise, how you eat, or more often don't eat, really play into stress. And our bodies are really primitive. They view stress as basically like a tiger trying to eat you. And whether that is an upsetting email from your boss or a day where you lived on, 1,200 calories, your body interprets that the same way, which is there's a tiger that's trying to eat me. We're in survival mode, which is scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can't imagine, like, there was a time in my life where I was for sure under eating and overtraining, and like fasting. You mentioned fasting too. Like, fasting does not help your hormonal health at all.
No, I know someone will email us from this now, like, oh my God, I love fasting so much. But if you're a woman of reproductive ages, no, it's not doing you any favors. So if you're a man, or if you're like 60, then maybe it could benefit you. But it is one of the most toxic health trends, I think, that is severely impacting many, many women.
Yeah, today it was funny what I saw another one of your posts, and you said, I eat right, like within 30 minutes to 60 minutes of when I get up. I can't, there are so many times where I just don't, because of that fasting mentality.
Yeah.
Like, I've had my lemon water, I've had my coffee, I'm not really that hungry. And this morning I was like, no, absolutely not. Ever since I saw that,
Good.
No, I need to get protein in my body immediately.
Yes, your blood sugar is so grateful for that. But you're right. When I was a big intermittent fasting person, like, I felt so accomplished if I could go until noon only on black coffee, then I was like, wow, I'm like so healthy. I'm doing such great things for my body. Meanwhile, like, I have hypothyroidism, and I like never connected the dots of like, oh, funny, like you developed a thyroid issue after, partaking in all this, again, really trendy health advice. Like, like it took me years to connect the dots of like, duh, maybe I need to look closer at my habits. And as soon as I shifted those, my thyroid numbers regulated. So like, it's,
oh man, without medication or anything?
Yeah, no medication.
Well, I've been on Synthroid for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
I've had hypothyroidism since I was a little thing, and they just stuck me on Synthroid for like ever. And that's like the one thing I've never like stopped taking in my life. They're just like, no, you have to take it. I'm like, okay, I don't take it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll just keep taking it. So
it's hard because it is like a medication. Typically they just leave you on for life. Like I have a friend that's been on it 35 years and she's, just like, I don't know if I can stop taking it. And I'm not advocating anyone stop any medications, but I just think it just illuminates again, like there's no follow-up in Western medicine and no one is like retesting your numbers every year. And nobody is really focused on fixing the root of the problem. And instead it's like, just take a pill forever.
Oh, you are preaching to the choir. I feel the same way, strangely, about like honestly mental health. I think medication is necessary for some people if they really need it, but I have the same concept as it's like no one's fixing the root problem of what's really going on, like unresolved trauma, or I mean half the time it has to do with what you put into your body and your surroundings and what's going on, and no one really like links the two. They think that everything is separate, like, okay, my mental health and these medications I have to be on for my anxiety and depression is separate from maybe my hormonal health and my diet and my activity levels and just general, mindfulness. So
it's just so silly. Like when you're saying it out loud, I'm like, how is that a thing? How can we just act like the body is like, you can chop it into like 20 different pieces and nothing interplays together? I think that's why so many people, are more interested now in naturopathic medicine and holistic health, because a lot of people have been really let down by Western medicine's obsession with acting like everything is separate and doesn't affect other systems.
Yeah. And I think what I've noticed sometimes, and this maybe not for all Western, not all Western medicines, but and practices, but sometimes you're kind of just a number and they don't really treat you as a person and realize like you're a human being. You're not just like a little specimen under a little, test tube that they need to examine. And I feel like that approach to just everything really it doesn't make you feel any better. You don't really feel like they care much about you. So,
exactly. I'm pregnant right now. And so I've been like, looking more into kind of like common pregnancy things, if you decide to work with an OBGYN or like kind of just things that are really normalized even in that setting. And it's really disturbing just to learn that like the insurance companies govern everything in that. So like, it's not even so much, sadly, like the doctors that choose to only do 7-minute appointments or, will refuse to do like vaginal deliveries for certain kinds of pregnancies. Like it's the insurance companies that get to decide the kind of care women get. And I know it just like makes me so angry at this, like the way in which women are treated through every season of their life from, when you start bleeding, the way that we're all totally uninformed and uneducated. And then when you get pregnant, you're kind of put on this conveyor belt where you're supposed to just blindly trust some system. And then in menopause, then it's like, oh, you have to be on hormones. And I'm like, we never get a break.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're 100% right. I can't, especially when you're pregnant, that's like, you have a whole human life growing inside of you, for God's sake. You know what I mean? So like, you should be treated with care and compassion in some regard, as opposed to, like you said, I like the conveyor belt analogy. That's actually spot on. It's really sad and messed up, but it's true, unfortunately. How would you say, like, what do you see the most right now, like in terms of your pregnancy and like your hormonal health, like mentally, how has it affected you? Have you been like, well, how has it been?
I mean, I definitely have some like crazy lady pregnancy days where I just feel like really annoyed and irritable at everything. But honestly, I've felt really lucky. I've had a really, really easy pregnancy. I didn't have any morning sickness or, any of the like really common symptoms a lot of women do struggle with. And it's hard to say why that could be, but, me being a doctor, it's like my mind always goes to, but why? Like, I want to understand why certain things happen so that I can educate other patients, on maybe how to have a similar simple pregnancy. But to me, I think I focused for at least 6 months on replenishing my mineral levels and getting my hormones in a really good place, like extra intentionally, even though for years this has been my passion. And I really think it speaks volumes, how, again, women are educated to care for themselves before pregnancy will impact the health of their pregnancy and their ability to, balance themselves when, you are going to have some weird days and you're going to watch your body change. And, you're like, you just feel bloated for like 20 weeks and you don't even look pregnant. And, there's a lot of weird things that come with it. But what it's illuminated to me is just simply, again, like if women had basic information about how to support their bodies and nourish their bodies, I think a lot of the common pregnancy issues that women deal with could be alleviated. But people don't talk about that because that's not a prescription that can make someone billions of dollars. Like, those are simple lifestyle changes that don't make anybody rich.
I have, let's see, 3 girlfriends that are currently also pregnant right now. And I don't have anyone. I'm just, I got no one. I get to see them through the process. And I'd say the most common struggle from all 3 of them is like the mental toll it takes on you for your body to change so drastically, and then the hormonal fluctuations and how mentally that can just like, oh man, they've just really been struggling like with depression and anxiety and even struggling to like give into some of those cravings sometimes of eating and nourishing their body. And that's really tough. I can't, but I mean, I think it's beautiful what you're doing and what you're preaching on your platform. I've actually sent your page to all 3 of them. I'm like, just go listen to her, please. I'm like, just go watch what she's doing. But yeah, they're luckily, like, I think all 3 of them already delivered, but it's tough. It's really tough to have that have your body change like that. And then the way mentally you're affected, and then like half is hormonal issues, and then the rest are just like your own insecurities coming up as well. So
totally. I wish more people talked about this because you can really feel really balanced in like your body image and everything before pregnancy. But then, when your body starts changing and your boobs grow like 4 times the size and, you just start to have those little fears of like, what will my body look like after baby? And like, it's hard. And unfortunately, people don't really talk about that. We live in like more of a bounce back culture where, I mean, there's women that gave birth like 2 weeks ago that are already exercising.
They're like shredded and you're like, what happened? How did you
know? And I'm like, girl, like I'm so sorry society has told you need to do that. Cause like you literally don't. Like all that matters right now is you and your baby. You don't need to have a 6-pack.
No, that's true though. Like I keep telling them that too. It's tough. It's really I can't imagine, because as women, we're so hard on ourselves of what we need to look like physically all the time. Like you need to be this perfect picture image of being incredibly tiny yet having curves at the same time, which is just it doesn't work this way.
Right. Unless you're like one of the like 0.001% of people that naturally has the perfect proportions apparently.
No such thing. It's like I don't know. And then cellulite too is huge. Like I've seen more and more more and more women start showing what their bodies really look like in all lightings, like ever. And I don't know, there's this one girl, this is sort of off topic but on topic. I went to the gym. I'm very self-conscious of wearing shorts, always have been in my life, because like I'm literally a Coke bottle. Like this is this and then hips and then that's it. So obviously I'm going to have cellulite. So anytime I wear shorts, it's like, oh my God, I'm sitting there going, oh, I need to do more cardio. I need to walk on incline. I need to do this. And it's just like the cycle that you have in your head going through needing to look perfect just to show up at the gym in shorts is ridiculous. And there was one point where I was doing lots and lots of cardio and less weight training, which was strange because, my understanding and knowledge of everything I ever learned was no, weight training and resistance training is really, really good for you. Do not just do cardio. That's not going to do anything. You shouldn't have to do cardio. You should do like just walks outside to get your cortisol levels down. But when those insecurities hit, it's tough to remember being healthy is what you need to do, you know?
Yes. Oh, it's such a good point. I see this so often, say like with a patient who has amenorrhea, like, they lost their period because usually they're over exercising, under eating. Sometimes they're underweight, but not always. Sometimes they look, pretty like a normal weight. And it's really hard sometimes to have these conversations with women and be like, to get your period back, you have to eat more.
Yeah.
You have to stop exercising. And sometimes they're so desperate to, to get their period back and to feel like they're not, like aged and, they don't feel good.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are women that are so scared of putting on any weight that they're like, oh, well, like, I don't need a period. Like, oh, like they'll sacrifice their whole health because they think they need to be a size 0 or something. And it's freaking heartbreaking.
It is. What would you say, other than that struggle, like mentally with your patients, like what has been the correlation you've seen with not having a period? And then, oh God, birth control is a whole separate topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, not having a period, not having a normal cycle and amenorrhea and their mental health, like what do you see most typically?
Well, especially with amenorrhea, yeah, there are people that have really struggled with body image and they just go to control, and that's how they make themselves feel safe. So mentally, it's just a lot of obsessive tendencies like, yeah, I'm only going to eat 1,000 calories today, or I need to work out for 4 hours because it was my niece's birthday and I had a piece of cake yesterday.
Oh,
And
man.
I know it's so sad, but when you're in that loop, you don't see the toxicity of it. You don't know that this is truly really scary and really dangerous. But I mean, like for reference, usually when someone has amenorrhea, they need to be on about a 2,500 calorie a day diet just to get their period back, which is going to be like double what most people have been eating.
Yeah.
And usually they have to essentially remove all exercise besides like maybe walking.
Wow.
And so you can see why, like if you were obsessed with under eating, cardio for days, like you're not really going to be that open-minded to it. It's sad, you want to tell those women, like, even if you gain 10 pounds, like you're still going to be worthy and perfect and beautiful. Like, whoever told you you need to be this body size to be worthy of something lied to you.
Yeah. Wow. This is eerie timing, because when I had COVID for, Lord, I want to say about a week and a half, I obviously could not work out, but I was eating to nourish my body because I'm like, I'm not feeling well. And I was it's interesting. I was starving for like about a week and a half. And I went, okay, I'm just going to like listen to whatever the heck my body needs, but at least put like clean ingredients and not just sit there and have a bag of chips and cookies, which I did a couple times. And then it was like, I'm human.
Yes.
But I struggled so badly with going back to the gym recently because I went, oh no, like I feel inflamed. I feel the water weight. I feel from all the sodium of like the soups that I was having with all the broths. And but like the whole time I took a week off from a week and a half off from the gym, mentally I was struggling. Suddenly my body image was like, oh no, I don't feel as good. I feel like I don't look as good. And it was sad. And then showed up to the gym a couple days ago, and literally I do this thing where I talk to myself in the mirror and I go, listen, I go, you look great. Just go to the gym and work out for yourself. You're not there for anyone else. But yeah, I needed to hear you say that, because I still struggle with it too. The battle of like getting, like, I lost a ton of weight recently and people are coming up to me like, how did you do it? I'm like, I didn't do anything crazy. If anything, I actually lessened the amount of times I work out a week. I don't do crazy cardio. I got my stress and inflammation down, And I cut out foods that I probably was allergic to be honest. And it was just that simple. And like, no one believes you. They think that I'm like training crazy hours like an athlete. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. But
I know. We're just, everyone thinks there's a magic pill. So like I have a client right now who, when I started working with her, she was living on 1,200 calories a day, and she was like 90 pounds heavier than she wanted to be. So, she had picked up a decent amount of weight, seemingly doing everything right. Like, hardly eating anything, walking, a couple hours a day, like doing everything, quote, right, not actually right, but in her mind, right. And yet she was just gaining weight every month. And so it's been over a year now that we've been working together, but it took a lot of time for us to repair her metabolism and her thyroid and to get her stress hormones down. But now she's up to eating about 2,500 calories a day, losing pounds every week. So she is down like 18 pounds or something now. She's lost like 9 inches on her waist. And that's the thing, like not everyone is ready for like the in-depth journey she's been on, but it just goes to show you, like, at some point those habits catch up with you. You can't get away with over exercising and under eating for forever. Eventually your body will give up and you'll start packing on weight. And it's now really cool to see her in the opposite realm. And everyone's asking her like, oh my God, you look amazing. What are you doing? And she's like telling me like, Cassandra, I don't know what to tell them, because like they're not ready to hear what I've actually been doing.
Oh God. People forget that when you undereat and you're doing all these things, and like you said, your stress goes up, your inflammation goes up, mentally, you're not okay at all. Like you're more hypervigilant from what I've noticed, more anxious. Your stress and like fight or flight response, your adrenaline, your cortisol, dear Jiminy Christmas, like it all just goes out of whack. And then the way you're seeing and perceiving your daily life is going to be completely abnormal and not like the reality. It's just going to be based off of the stress response.
Exactly. Yeah. We need to take out a billboard and put all this on there. Like, please stop.
The amount of times I like on my platform, I never say I preach mental health. I just say mental wellness, because it's all encompassing. Like anytime I even have coffee in the morning, I always supplement it with L-theanine just to like cover my bases. Oh, bless you. I couldn't even hear this sneeze.
I muted myself because I knew it was going to be loud.
That was smart. So I did that, and I don't know, it helps me stay more calm. I don't do crazy pre-workouts. I just can't. That the only one I've ever used is by Alani New, but it had like green coffee bean or green tea instead of like caffeine and androhydro, whatever the heck chemical that is. And like all these herbs in it instead. I think it has ashwagandha and L-theanine. I believe it has both. And you don't have like the crazy cortisol spike, because I do it right in the morning. So that would be awful. I was going to ask you about birth control, because yes.
Big subject.
Oh yes. So this is what I was the most curious about, because there's so much research now being done, and so many women now are going off of birth control and just like tracking their cycles naturally, which can be scary. I'll be honest, if you're dating, that's a scary thing. So I went off of birth control a year and a half ago, because I stopped having periods, and I was on it consistently for like, Lord, 14 years, never took a break.
What? Wow, that's a long time.
It was bad. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know what the heck's going to happen when I come off of this. So I got off of it, and immediately I noticed my mental health was like significantly better. Strangely, the type of men I was attracted to changed. My cycles came back immediately, actually within a month. My body was like, oh, cool. like we're just kind of jumping right back into this, but they were the most painful and horrendous periods ever. And yeah, I think my anxiety actually after coming off the pill went up, which was weird, instead of it being kind of level. And then, please don't hit me through the computer. And then, and then recently I got back on it like 2 months ago because I was like starting to date again. And I went, let me get back on just to make sure. I don't know, just want to be safe. And the strangest thing happened, which not really that strange, but my anxiety went away. I noticed when I was off of birth control, my hair was like thinning, which was super weird. And then, I don't know. Now I don't have a period again, which is nuts, and I hate it. So again, today I was like, I gotta get back off again. This is not, I can't do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Birth control definitely affects everyone a little differently, but the good thing and the bad thing about birth control is it is a Band-Aid approach. So it's not great in that, it doesn't fix painful periods. It doesn't fix anxiety and stuff like that, but it does numb it. So it Band-Aids it, which can be helpful when there are really aggressive symptoms. But I'm not surprised you had things like hair thinning because it does deplete our nutrient levels. So things like B vitamins and vitamin C and magnesium. I mean, it pulls so much from our system, which is why it scares me that some doctors, say to women like, oh, you can quit birth control anytime and start trying for a baby. When I'm like, excuse me, like your body, if you've been on oral contraceptives, is going to be really, really low in these nutrients. That's proven. There are multiple studies on that. So why are we not telling people to replenish those things for, 3 to 6 months and then try for a baby? But birth control is, nice in that it does give more of that peace of mind, like you said, like with dating and all of that. Because, I've been a proponent of the fertility awareness method, which is different than the rhythm method. Before anybody's like, the rhythm method, that's only like 68% effective or something.
Oh my God.
Which the rhythm method is the assumption that everyone has a 28-day cycle and everyone ovulates on day 14. So it's kind of like, oh, you're careful like day 10 through like day 15.
Yeah.
But a lot of women ovulate earlier and later than that. So that's why it's not an effective birth control, because that's not based on anything other than you hopefully ovulate on day 14. Whereas the fertility awareness method, which is upwards of 99% effective when done correctly, is actually tracking when we're truly ovulating, and then either being really careful during that window if we're avoiding pregnancy by, abstaining or using a barrier method, or being intimate a lot if we're trying to get pregnant. So it's really useful in either scenario, but they require, some commitment. They require definitely learning a whole new skill. And so I do have a ton of empathy that like there, sometimes it's just like, that's more than I can put on my plate right now.
Yeah. It's my sister actually is doing it right now. We did the opposite. I went back on, she got off. And she's using natural cycles. It's like a little thermometer that you use instead. And she's like, no, I'm being taught like how my body is during every cycle, like every different day and cycle of what's happening. And like when I'm actually ovulating, when I'm not ovulating, when I need to use protection, when I don't. And she's like way more calm, super chilled out. It's less cuckoo, which is nice. But no, she enjoys it. She enjoys learning about her body. That's what she said. She's like, I really love like, knowing what my body is doing and having that awareness and mindfulness of it.
Yeah, it is really cool. Because I mean, like for most of my life, well, up until, I was 20 something years old, I thought you could get pregnant every day of the month, because that's what I've been told is you're fertile all the time and, you're going to get pregnant. And it wasn't until I actually started studying the fertility awareness method that I found out like when you ovulate, that egg is only viable up to 24 hours. That's literally it in a whole month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. However, sperm can live in healthy cervical mucus up to 5 days.
Oh.
So that's why it's kind of like a fertile window of 5 days. But still, I'm like, oh, there's only 5 days that sex can even get you pregnant. Like when I was in my early 20s, like I was so disconnected from myself that I was like, oh my God, I might get pregnant. When in reality, I'm sure there was never really a risk of it. But I think it just goes to show, like, again, just like zero information about our bodies. And then, we're on birth control, or we're feeling like we have to use Plan B pills and stuff because we don't even know what ovulation is. Yeah. I mean, when you're on oral birth control, especially, your hormones kind of mimic a menopausal woman's hormones in that there's just like not a lot going on.
No, it's true. Yeah. Cause I'm back on it and I'm like, no one's home. So
no.
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I saw another thing that you posted about working out and the different phases of your menstrual cycle. Do you want to touch on that and like how important it is, like with each stage of like what you should be doing?
Yeah, it's really fun to cycle sync your exercise, especially if you're like me and I get bored with doing any one thing for very long. Like I'll go through my like, I'm going to be a runner phase. And then like 2 weeks later, I give up because it's too monotonous for me. So cycle syncing exercise is great because you essentially shift your exercise a little bit during every phase of your cycle. So you could kind of say like for, in a month, every week, you have a slightly different thing you're doing. But yeah, starting with your menstrual phase or your period phase, this is when our hormones are very, very low naturally. So that's why a lot of us typically feel pretty tired and maybe don't have a ton of energy to go like run or hike a mountain or something like that. So this is a great time for yoga and Pilates, or honestly, better yet, just rest, like just to have a few rest days. That's very, very fair. When you come into your follicular phase, your body starts making a lot of estrogen and testosterone. So this is why usually you have more energy and you feel like you want to be a little more adventurous with exercise. So it's a great time for walking, for some cardio, for hiking, for swimming, things that slowly build in intensity as you approach ovulation. So ovulation is when we have the most energy typically. So this is a great time if you like, Orange Theory or HIIT classes or Tabatas or some kind of like crazy boot camp class or running, things that are very high intensity. And then the luteal phase, which is after ovulation and when a lot of us may feel things like PMS or breast tenderness. This is a really great phase for things like strength training. So honestly, strength training could easily be done during every phase. It's the most hormonally supportive workout you can do in general. Yeah. So there's a lot to that, but yeah, the luteal phase definitely is like a chill out on the like crazy cardio, like stop with the
it's
intense
weird. We're like always taught that during our period we need to like keep going and be like super like, oh no, just tough it out.
Just take some painkillers. It's fine.
take some painkillers and you'll work out and you'll feel better.
I know, it's so weird. I know it's such a patriarchal world and we're told to just push through our cycles. And I think that's really sad. It like makes us miss how extraordinary our cycles and hormones really are. Yeah, no, 100%. How did you get it? I kind of want to hear like your story of how you got into this and why you became so passionate with like hormonal health and how everything works. Yeah. It mostly was because I felt very let down through most of my health experiences. When I was in my adolescence, I had really irregular periods. So I wouldn't get a period for 3, 6, 9 months at a time. And I was an athlete, I was a runner. So looking back, I can like totally pinpoint what was going on, but I didn't know that at the time. So I went and saw a doctor when I was 18, thinking that it was going to be this really like incredible thing. They were really going to help me. And yeah, like most people, it was a 5-minute appointment and they gave me birth control. And that was so deflating to me. And so like, oh, like, okay, there was no like actual investigation. There was no one that actually cared that I wasn't having a normal cycle. So it just started to brew this like confusion in me of like, okay, why is this how we treat women's health issues? I did my undergrad, which was pretty conventional, and definitely left me again with more of these feelings of like, again, why are we not investigating what causes these health issues? I am learning about thyroid disorders. I'm learning about diabetes. I'm learning about cancer. But it's just like, some people get it, and then this is how you treat it for life. So that just never sat well with me. So when I went into naturopathic school, that was like a hallelujah moment, because there were people like me in the world that felt like that cared to investigate why these things happen and how to address it at the root. Ironically, while I was in naturopathic school, though, this is when I was really obsessed with fasting, and I was vegan, and excessive cardio, and I was in a really unhealthy relationship, and just kind of like the perfect storm of stress. And that's when I had hypothyroidism. So my hair was falling out, and I had big bags under my eyes, and I just looked frail and old. Like I had more wrinkles than I do now. Like it was really disturbing to live through. And while it was really hard, it also gave me that kick in the butt of like, you have to go back, Cassandra, to like step one, because you're doing everything that's supposed to be healthy. You're doing everything that's supposedly right, and you feel like literal garbage. So it was then that invitation to look into, okay, how are male and female hormones different, and what really is required for thyroid balance, and how many calories does the body really need, and how does the liver work, and how does blood sugar come into hormone balance? And it was this like insane awakening over those next few years of like, basically everything we learn about health is opposite of what it really is. So and then when I started sharing my story, obviously it resonated with so many people, and now it's grown into what it is.
Yeah, I think it's just wonderful, like how in those moments where we're struggling the most, like someone needs to know, like what the reality and the truth is of all this misinformation that we're given on in so many factors of our lives. So
I'm curious, since you know quite a bit about your body, you seem very body literate, and I love that you've focused so much on your health and well-being. What kinds of things do you do in regards to your monthly cycle and your mental wellness?
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, that's a good question. I would say when I was off of birth control, it was a lot more mindful for me, because I knew exactly what was happening and why it was happening. I'd say in like once I was regular again, I'd pay very close attention to my emotions and how I was reacting to things in like those few days leading up to my cycle. It was easier for me to pinpoint why I was seeing certain situations in a certain light, as opposed to the reality of it, where I was, the typical, like I was overly sensitive, very irrational emotionally. When I was on the pill for like 14 plus years, I was incredibly reactive. I almost every interaction I had with anyone was almost like a perceived threat for some reason, as opposed to just seeing things a little bit more clear-headed. So I'd say monthly, like when I was off of the pill, it was very much like more, like in those moments where I was ovulating and I had more energy, I was aware of it, because I went, okay, now I have more endurance. Even my diet was tailored when I was trying to train aesthetically. My diet was tailored to my cycle. So like I go, okay, I'm less insulin resistant during this phase of my cycle. Therefore, I kind of have to cut back a little bit on carbohydrates, but I was never so like one of those people who would completely cut back on carbs. When I know that when that happened, it would work for like 3 days. I'd look great, but then all of a sudden I'd get inflamed. I'd miss my period. I was more cranky. I was more irritable. It was the worst. I didn't feel the need to have, quote, treat meals, because I was giving myself enough nutrients during certain phases in my cycle. where I didn't really have cravings leading up to my cycle anymore, because I took care of it. So like the first couple of weeks, I was like a little bit more quote carb heavy and like eating more naturally. The latter 2 weeks, like 14 to 28, but for me, my cycle was like 26 days on the dot. So during the last half, I'd make sure I was eating a little bit cleaner, but like just like more comfort type of foods um, as opposed to just being like protein, vegetables, rice, because that gets boring. So so I'd make sure to just like load up on different nutrients. And I noticed a difference in my mindset. But at that time, I was training specifically to look a certain way for like a photo shoot. But then after that, like I only did that for a couple months. After that, I went back to like maintenance. And when I went back to maintenance with my nutrition for my cycles, I felt very calm. I was less reactive. Anytime anyone, pissed me off, I had a bit more of a lens of observing instead of being like right there in it. And then obviously like my sex drive was like through the roof when I got off the pill, and I was like, this is dangerous because I don't know. I was like, I don't know how to track anything. So in a strange way, I actually like shut myself off of dating and men for a while, which was not smart. So I just got like scared because I'm like, oh, I've never done this without being on the pill for like 14 plus years. Like, so yeah, but during those phases, during that time I was more mindful. I'd say now that I'm back on, it's like I don't even think about it. I don't think about my moods or anything. I don't think about my diet as much. So I personally enjoyed being off of it because I was more in sync with my body. And then being more in sync with my body helped me be more in sync with my mind. So yeah, that's a very long answer to your question, but yeah.
That's fascinating though. I bet a lot of people can resonate with what you're saying and know exactly how that feels.
Yeah, it's weird because it is like what you said, but being back on the pill, I feel numb. I mean, I'm like eerily calm. And I don't have any anxiety, but that could also be because of so many other factors. Maybe I've healed from things more. Maybe I just have better habits. Who knows? There's like so many other things. But yeah, I don't enjoy not having a period. For years, I was like so aggravated and angry with like the medical system not having a period. And I was like, no, this isn't normal. My doctor would be like, no, you don't technically need to have one. And I would like stop and look at them and be like, but it's cathartic for me I feel like it's like a release. I feel like I'm like shedding or detoxing in some way or shape or form at the end of every month. And I feel like that's healthy. So
yeah. I think it's really wild that they say that it's not necessary to bleed. I mean, in theory, yeah, like, can you go years without bleeding? Yeah, totally. But is that the best thing for people? I mean, I think they'd have a hard time proving that it's actually healthy to not have a period.
Yeah, no, I don't enjoy it like at all. So this conversation gave me like way more clarity again, and I was just kind of sitting there like, okay, why did I actually go back on? I think I went back on as a form of pressure of like, oh, I'm dating again, I better be careful. And also being scared of like a man's response if I'm like, hey, I'm not on the pill, you need to like, wrap your tool, my guy. So
it's a good way to say it.
So it's anxiety inducing. So I felt like this pressure of like, if I don't go back on, and I'm starting my whole business, like and then everything else, unfortunately, that's like happening in the world, it just gave me so much anxiety. So,
yeah. I mean, and that's valid. That's the thing, is like for every person, we have to sit with what's really right for us. Because it can be intense to have that conversation. When I met my now fiance, I at the time was like, this is my test. Like if a man has a problem with me using the fertility awareness method, like let me know sooner than later, because then you're done. Like,
yeah.
If you're gonna shame me for what I choose to do with my body, like no. And yeah, I was so like happily surprised when I told him, and he was just like, wow, like I've never heard of that. Will you tell me more about it? And I was like, oh, okay, I like you.
That's good. I like that.
Guys can just wrap it up. Like,
yes, please.
Definitely. It's not just our responsibility. They're fertile all the time. We're fertile up to 5 days. So
I agree 100%. I don't want to put poison into my body all the time.
That's the thing. Yeah. Well, they supposedly are about to release this male birth control pill. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes. But yeah, I won't be surprised if, men experience some of the same symptoms that we have on the pill. And if it's like pulled from the shelf, because they're like, oh, too many guys had adverse effects. And we'll all be like, yeah, okay, tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. If some guys want to try it, it'll be interesting to see how it affects them. And if there's like similar things we can measure down the road of like, oh, like not ovulating for many years isn't great, and it does deplete our nutrients, and it can shrink our ovaries, and different things that are like kind of not great. It'll be interesting if they have a similar effect.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very curious and interested as well. 100%. If anyone resonated with what you were talking about or anything to do with your story, what would be the advice that you'd want to give them, or what would you say to them?
I think I'd say it's really powerful to see your menstrual cycle not as a hindrance and not as this like horrible thing you have to deal with, and rather to start to see it as this really unique tool and perspective into your overall health. When we just make that shift in our belief around our cycle, I think it makes us more curious to understand it. It gives us more excitement to push against this society that has really disconnected us from our cycle and really, really led us to believe that like, yeah, just take a pill and numb it out. Is that really the right thing? Or have we just been pushed away from our most basic biology? So stay curious and ask questions. And if you are dealing with severe cycle issues and your doctor doesn't seem to care, or they're dismissing it or acting like just another, birth control will fix it, sit with that, because that may not be the right option for you. And I have a podcast called the CYCLICAL Podcast. So if you find all this fascinating, there's deep dives into everything from period pain to endometriosis and PCOS and birth control and all the things. And then I have a program that I open a couple times a year called Period Reboot, which is for women that want to get to the root of their cyclical and hormone issues without birth control. So that's all just on my Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. And remember, you have to go through the eye of the storm to see the clear horizon ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.